Welcome to Law Excellence Hindu News Analysis. Today we are going to cover these four topics that are appeared in the Hindu newspaper. So, before going to the first article, try to answer this question by yourself. Just pause the video and try to answer this question. Now, this question says that consider the following statements with respect to the fisheries sector in India. Now, first statement is marine sector constitutes 70% of the total fishing in India, whether it is right or wrong. Second statement is India is the world's second largest producer of shrimp. Now try to answer this question by yourself. Now coming to the first article. This article says that India conducts historic flight test of hypersonic missiles with a range of 1500 kilometers. Now this article is about technological development in the missile sphere in India. Why this article is important? Yes, this article is important. If you see the JS paper 3, there is a syllabus topic of indigenization of technology, and UPSC has a habit of asking in JS paper 3 about the technological developments in machineries, equipment, artilleries, etc. For example, if you see the previous year question, there was a question about the features and specialization of S400 in GS paper 3, right? When there are any weapons like this are there in the news, they are very important from the examination perspective. Now, from the prelims perspective, if you see this previous year question, this was asked in prelims 2023 itself. Now, it was saying that ballistic missiles are propelled at subsonic speeds throughout their flights, while cruise missiles are rocket powered only in the initial phase of the flight. Now, this question interchanges the terms because ballistic missiles are propelled only in the initial phase of the flight, but whereas the cruise missiles are propelled throughout their flights. Now, this statement is wrong statement. Next, if we see the second statement, Agni 5 is a medium range supersonic cruise missile, while BrahMos is a solid fuel intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, this statement is again interchanged. It is the Agni 5 that is intercontinental ballistic missile. Now, the BrahMos is the cruise missile. Now, in this way, both the statements are wrong. The answer is D. Okay. Now, the second question, if you see, is that it's about with reference to Agni 4 missile, which of the following statements is or are correct? Now, it is saying that it is a surface to surface missile, which is a true. Now, the second statement saying it is fueled by liquid propellant only. Now, even if you don't know, this sounds very extreme, right? In that way, you can say it is wrong. Now, third statement saying that it can deliver 1 ton nuclear warheads about 7,500 kilometers away. Now, UPSC has a habit of playing with the numbers and facts. Even if you don't know, it may sound wrong, right? Now, this is also wrong. Now, answer is only one. Now, this article is saying that India successfully flight tested the maiden long-range hypersonic missile with a range of 1500 kilometers. Now, this is designed and developed by the DRDO. Now, this flight test is conducted in the Abdul Kalam Island of coast of Odisha. Now, this is very important from the domain of defense. Why? Because India has a nuclear doctrine, right, in which it is saying that it will have minimum credible deterrence. Now, development of missiles like this will create a capacity and a perception that India is strong militarily in nature, right? Now, from this perspective, especially from the examination perspective, you have to know certain facts, especially regarding the missiles based on the previous year questions. Before discussing that, you have to know certain facts about hypersonic missile, especially this missile. Now, this missile can travel at a speed of at least Mach 5 speed. Now, because of which it can travel at very low altitudes also, and because of this it is really difficult to detect them and identify. Now by the time they are detecting, they are very close to the target and very get little time to react for the opponents. Now this is what the speciality of this equipment. Now in this context you have to know these basic facts. What is subsonic missile? Subsonic missile is something that can travel slower than the speed of the sound. For example, in India we have Prithvi short range ballistic missile. Supersonic missile means that can travel with a speed faster than speed of the sound. Now in India we have BrahMos supersonic cruise missiles, right? Okay. Next, hypersonic missiles, which means that it can travel at a speed of 5 times the speed of the sound. Now India we have missiles like Shaurya, Sagarika missiles, etc. Now you may hear about ballistic and cruise missiles, right? Now what is that? See, these supersonic, subsonic, hypersonic, all these are the types of missiles based on the speed of the sound. But these ballistic and cruise missiles are based on the trajectory, right? Now you have to know certain differences because previous year it was asked about ballistic and cruise missiles, right? Now this is what the differences you have to know. Now see ballistic missile, they are propelled for a brief duration after launch. That means only in the initial launch they are propelled. Next, ballistic missiles are helpful in long-range missiles leaving the Earth's atmosphere. This is very important. Keep this point from the prelims perspective because ballistic missiles will travel outside of the atmosphere for some time. Next, low precision as it is unguided for most of its path. This unguided word is very important from the prelims perspective because this is what given in the last year prelims. It can travel very long range. See, 12,000 kilometers. There is no fuel requirement after its initial trajectory. Now, this keep this point in mind. Now, this is what asked in the last year films, right? Now, certain facts have to be remembered. Next, it has carrying capacity of heavy payloads. It can carry multiple payloads. You may hear about Agni-5 intercontinental ballistic missile, right? That is also MYRV, multiple independently targetable re-entry vehicle. Now that is also part of the ballistic missile, but which is of intercontinental. Now this was in the news also. You have to study these things for the mains examination also. Next, cruise missiles are the self-propelled till the end. That is what it is saying. It is propelled throughout their flight, which is a statement given in the last year prelims. Next, the flight path is within the atmosphere. Most of the time, this is within the atmosphere only. Now, this fact is very, very important from the prelims. It's targeted with high precision as it is constantly propelled and shorter distance compared to the ballistic missile. As it is a shorter distance, because see, below 500 kilometers, it's need to be constantly propelled and hit the target with high precision. Okay, as it is a shorter distance and with higher speed, payload capacity is also limited. Now, usually carries a single payload. This was developed primarily to carry conventional warheads. Now, these are the things you have to remember from the both prelims and mains perspective also. Now, this article is saying that COP29 discussions flagging no progress made on issues critical to developing countries, said by the Indian representative. Now, this article is saying that recently a conference is happening, that is Conference of Parties 29 under UNFCCC in Azerbaijan capital Baku. Now, this conference is not yet over, but the representative from India saying that there are many conferences happening year on year. Every year there is new targets and new protocols, but there is no concrete development at the ground level, especially regarding climate finance. Why it is talking about climate finance? Because it is being said that everyone will not have same capacity to adapt to the climate change. Everyone will not same capacity to transition into the fossil fuels. There are developed countries which are developed very early in nature, but they are contributing a lot to the greenhouse gases compared to the developing countries. Hence, they are more responsible in the climate mitigation process. And developing countries has the obligation of welfare services in their own country, right? But they don't have adequate financial capacity. Now, in this context, developed countries has to finance the developing countries in their transition to the green energy and provide technology transfer. That is what India is saying that. Now, India is saying that we should not need more protocols or targets every year new because we need to achieve the existing targets. Because, for example, in Paris Agreement 2005, there is a target of giving $100 billion a year to the developing countries, which is not yet achieved, right? Now, in this way, there are many targets that are yet to be achieved by the developed countries. Now, this is what the Indian representative in this article. There is a need of concrete progress that has to be made in the climate finance. Now, this article is not yet completed because daily there is article about COP29. Now, in previous year, there is a question that what are the outcomes of the COP27 or 28? That is what the questions are asking in the mains exam. Now, once this COP conference completed, we will discuss the outcomes. Now, before that, based on our discussion, try to answer this question. That is, what are the challenges to the climate finance? What can be the alternative sources of finance for the developing countries? Now, this discussion about the COP19 have been conducted in our previous video also. You can try refer that. Based on that, try to answer this question. Now, this article is saying that recently Telangana government taken a decision to ensure that people who are buying electric vehicles will exempted from road tax and registration fee. Why? This initiative is taken to encourage the people towards the electric vehicles. Why it is saying that? Now the author of the article is saying that the government was very concerned that the Hyderabad should not become a next New Delhi in terms of air pollution. Now that is what the context of the news. Now this is what the incentives that are Telangana government offering for the people who are intended to buy the electric vehicles. Now, this is what the context of the news. Now, why this article is very important? Yes, it is important. If you see previous year question in GS paper 3, it was asked that the adoption of electric vehicles is rapidly growing worldwide. How do electric vehicles contribute to reducing greenhouse gases and carbon emissions? What are the key benefits they offer compared to the traditional combustion engine vehicles? Now, this was the question that was asked in the last year mains examination. Now, in this context, this theme as electric vehicles is very important from the examination perspective. Now, in this context, we will discuss some benefits of electric vehicles. What are the challenges in adopting electric vehicles in India? What are the measures taken by the government from the mains perspective? The first and most important benefit of adopting electric vehicles is environmental benefits. What does it include? It prevents climate change. Why? Electric vehicles have zero tailpipe emissions. Zero tailpipe emissions, as it does not involve any internal combustion engines, right? Okay, that is also first benefit. And next is reducing air pollution. See, we often hear that the silences or the exhaust of the vehicles exhaust this particulate matter, especially the sulfur particles and all these things, right? Now this lead to a lot of air pollution. So by using electric vehicles, we can avoid these things. Next, sound pollution. Now in internal combustion vehicles, there are a lot of moving parts which leads to sound pollution. So we can avoid this by adopting internal electric vehicles. Now next important benefit is energy diversity. By adopting electric vehicles, we can diversify our energy basket also. And not only that, this is lead to energy security also. Why? Because India is dependent on the imports, especially India's 85% of crude oil imports are imported. India's 85% of crude oil requirement is imported and 65% of natural gas requirement is imported for especially this transport and energy sectors. Now, in this context, adopting electric vehicles is very important for maintaining self-reliance for India in energy sector. Next, technological advancements and job creation. This is important. Why? Because adopting electric vehicles will not only promote technological adoption in electric vehicles, but it also lead to research and development in sectors like battery and storage. Why? Because not just electric vehicles, we have issue of storing energy in the renewable energy sector, especially in the solar energy, wind energy. We don't have adequate storing technology. Presently, we depend on the batteries imported from the China. So in this context, this technology of solar panels, battery technology will also develop, and research and development ecosystem will also develop on this guise of electric vehicles. Now that is what this author is saying. And next important thing is long-term cost savings. Why it is important? Because as it is said that India's 85% crude oil requirement is imported, it leads to a lot of loss of foreign exchange resource, and this also leads to import bill. Now, we can reduce that in the long term by adopting electric vehicles. Now less maintenance. Now as it is said that we often lead to taking our bikes or cars to the mechanics, right? Because of the increasing moving parts in the normal IC engine vehicles. But in electric vehicles, we don't have such problems. Hence, we have less maintenance cost. Now, these are the benefits. Now, coming to the challenges. Now, first important challenge is high initial cost. Now, you see, electric vehicles cost initially is high because the 50 to 60% of cost of the vehicle is based on the batteries. But battery manufacturing and producing itself very costly process. Now, hence, it is a high initial cost. Next, limiting charging infrastructure. Now, if you see, there are few electric vehicles. The penetration of electric vehicles in India is less than 10% in India in the moment. This is because less charging infrastructure. If you see, the charging infrastructure is mostly concentrated in the metro cities, right? Now, if you cross that metro cities, there is less chances of you finding the charging infrastructure. Now, next important challenges or is battery technology and supply chain. Now, you know that electric vehicles batteries are made on the lithium-ion batteries. Now, these lithium-ion batteries require many rare earth metals. Now, India doesn't have these rare earth metals. Now, India depend on the China for importing these rare earth metals. And not only that, India depend on the China for the battery technology, especially regarding the lithium-ion. Hence, there are chances that supply chain disruptions that can happen in the production of electric vehicles in India. Now, these are one of the challenge. Another important challenge is limited model options. Now, many people aspire, while they are buying the cars and bikes. Now, we have different models. Now, it is not just an instrument for transport, but rather it is a social status. Now, demand is also based on the various models available in the bikes and cars, right? Now, presently in electric vehicles, the focus is more on developing electric vehicles, but not on the models. Now, this is one of the challenge. Another important challenge is charging time. Now, the charging time for electric vehicles is very high, especially compared to the IC engines. And not only that, while charging, the car or bike has to place in a certain place. Now, this is an issue of again infrastructure also. You need a lot of parking space while charging itself. Now, this is one of the important challenge. Now, another important challenge is range anxiety. Many people will travel with families in the cars or bikes. They think that after going certain distance, what is the issue of if the fuel is over? That means if the charging is over, where we get the charging? Now, if the bike is stopped suddenly, generally we don't have the people involved in servicing the electric vehicles then compared to the IC engines, right? Now, this is also one of the problem. Now, these are the challenges. Now, there are the certain steps taken by the government to promote electric vehicles adoption. We will see that. Now, coming to the measures taken. Now, if you see, you may have heard about this FAME scheme. What does it mean? Faster adoption and manufacturing of electric vehicle scheme. Now, what this scheme do? In this scheme, it promotes a lot of awareness to the people about the importance of electric vehicles. And not only that, it creates a demand and a market for the producers of electric vehicles. That creates a confidence that they can produce electric vehicles. Next, it provides incentives, especially to the consumers in buying vehicles, especially for example, it not taking the road tax, reducing the registering fees, etc. All these are done by the FAME scheme. And not only that, next scheme is production linked incentive. In this, interest subvention is given and incentives are provided to the producers of electric vehicles to promote electric vehicles production and manufacturing in India. Next, vehicle scrappage policy. Now, this is a policy in which under this, if you make your vehicle scrap, especially old vehicle, and buy the new electric vehicle, you will get a lot of incentives, especially regarding tax debates, etc. Now, next is EV vehicle 30 at the rate of 30 is an international campaign in which India is also strongly supporting. Now, what does it mean? It is saying that 30 means by 2030, all vehicles density should be captured by electric vehicles. That is 30% of the vehicles registered should be electric vehicles. That is what the this campaign. Now, these are the measures taken. Now, keep these facts in mind. You can use in your mains examination regarding electric vehicles. Okay. Now, coming to the next article. Now, if you see this article is saying that center aims to make Andaman and Nicobar Islands a tuna export hub. Now, this article is relevant, especially from the examination perspective. Now, if you see GS paper 3, previous year questions means, it said that define the blue revolution, explain the problems and strategies for the pisciculture development in India. Now, this is what the previous year question mains question. Now, in this context, this article is very important from the examination perspective. Now we will see what the article is saying. Now, article is saying that recently the export of tuna fish from India is increased by 31%. Now, this is what the article is saying. This article also mentioned that Indian Ocean is considered the second largest region for producing tuna. Around 21% of the world's tuna exports are coming from this region. Now, tuna is a very demand fish species, especially from the nutrition perspective. Now, this article is saying that at the world level, tuna market is very high. It is around $42 billion. Now, that is what this article is saying. Now, India is in the center of the Indian Ocean region. Within its exclusive economic region, it has a lot of potential to exploit this region's tuna species. Now, this article mentioned that tuna has very wide variety ranges of species such as skipjack, yellowfin, big eye. But the fisherman community or India producers have only targeted or tapped few species of this range, but left many species untapped. Now, the reasons for this, the article mentioned that certain challenges involved in the lack of adequate infrastructure, limited access to modern fishing technology, inadequate fish processing infrastructure, and lack of adequate storage facilities that lead to the post-harvest losses. Now, in this context, especially from the prelims perspective, you have to know certain facts regarding fisheries sector in India. See, India is the third largest producer of fish. Now, within India, Andhra Pradesh is the largest producer of fish in India, followed by the West Bengal. Now, these things may asked as statements in the prelims examination. Now, keep these facts in mind. Next important fact is that India, among the total fisheries production, 70% is coming from the inland fisheries and 30% from the marine fisheries. Now, keep this fact important in mind. Now, another important thing is that fisheries is a state subject in India. That means fishing in the internal waters, territorial sea. That is territorial sea means up to 12 nautical miles, right? Okay. Now, these things comes under the state subject. Now, beyond this territorial waters, that comes under the center or union list. Okay. Keep these facts in the mind, especially from the prelims perspective. Now, what is the potential of fisheries sector? Now, fisheries sector is very important because it is one of the secondary income for the farmers, especially in the rural areas. Now, if you see, India has a larger market, and not only India, in southeastern Asia also very much demand for the fish. Now, hence there is a lot of market for the fisheries sector. Now, another important thing is nutrition. Now, fish is considered as very important source of nutrition. Now, it is said that many countries today have this food security, but there is a lack of nutritional security. Now, in this context, demand for fish, especially this tuna fish, is very high. Next important thing is long coastal line. Now, India has a very long coastal line, especially it is having a 7,500 kilometers coastal line, including the islands and all. So, it has a lot of potential of fishing. Next, income support to farmers. Now, it is being said that only 30 to 40% of the income is coming from the normal conventional agriculture. Now, everything other than that is secondary agriculture that involves poultry, animal husbandry, fisheries, etc. Now, in this context, this fisheries sector play a key role in doubling the farmers' income. Next, untapped market. Why it is untapped market? Because in India, fisheries sector processing is very less. Now it is being said that less than 10% of the fish produced is being processed, hence there is less value addition. Now there is a lot of scope to implement in this. Now in this context, we will discuss some points from the mains perspective also. Now, what are the challenges in the fisheries sector? Now, first and foremost important challenge is illegal, unreported and unregulated fishing. What does it mean? Now, we often hear about things that bottom trawling, which is an ecologically destructive practice. Why it is called like that? Because by using bottom trawling, it leads to destruction of seagrass beds, coral reefs, and things like that. This affects the loss of biodiversity in the ocean region. Now, this is against ecologically sustainability. Now, next important thing is inadequate infrastructure and technology. Why? Now, fishing vessels used by the community fisheries, especially in the coastal areas, are outdated, and India has less processing facilities. Now, it is being said that India have less than 30% of processing facilities among the total fish produced in India. Now, insufficient cold storage. Now, that's why you often hear about post-harvest losses in India. Next, limited value addition. As there is less processing, there is a limited value addition. Now, this lead to reduction of farmers' income also. That's why it is said that less profit for the farmers. Now, inadequate market linkage. What does it mean? Because of the lack of adequate transport infrastructure, it is being said that most of the coastal fisheries or aquaculture or shrimp culture is based in the rural areas. Now, connectivity between the rural areas and mainstream towns is very important. And in rural areas, there is a lack of cold storage infrastructures also. Now, this leads to a lot of post-harvest losses also. This is what inadequate market linkages. Next important thing is climate change. Why does it mean? Because of the recent climate change, the average sea surface temperature is increasing. And not only that, this also lead to ocean acidification and changing water currents. Now, this also, damages or changing the pattern of upwelling of the nutrients in the ocean, right? Now, when there is less upwelling of nutrients and less resurface of nutrients, there is a less chance of fish. Hence, the catch rate of fish reduces. Catch rate reduces. Now, all these are the challenges faced by the fisheries sector. Now, what can be the way forward and measures taken? Now, Pradhan Mantri Matsya Sampada Yojana. If you see Matsya Sampada Yojana, government is promoting the two-wheeler ice box, cold chains in the nearby village areas, networking the harbors, fishing sectors, new fishing harbors, mechanization of boats, etc., promoting deep sea fishing under the park-based scheme. All these are the support from the government towards prosperity of the fishing sector. Next, embracing the aquaponics is one of the important suggestions. What is meant by aquaponics? Now, doing simultaneously aquaculture and agriculture is what aquaponics. The waste from the aquaculture can be used in the agriculture also. And water from the agriculture, you can use that. Now, in this way, we have less wastage, best usage and optimum usage of resources. This is what the article is saying. Next important thing is Fisheries and Aquaculture Infrastructure Development Fund. Now, this fund can be used for the development of cold facilities, cold storage facilities, transport facilities, etc. Now, this provide interest subvention also. Next, important technological support is Gemini device, which is a Gagan-enabled mariners instrument for navigation. Now, these instruments use GSAT satellites, GSAT communication satellites, especially to maintain seamless communication with the fisherman community when they are off the sea. That means they communicate with weather, winds, oceans, ocean currents, so that they can have an informed decision about the fishing, water temperature, etc. Now, these are the things you have to keep in mind from the mains perspective. Have a note of these facts. Now, coming to the next article. Now, this article is saying that India, Bangladesh have maintained relations despite changes. Now, the context of the news is that this article is saying that India and Bangladesh have maintained very strong relations despite the changes in the political mean. What does it mean? Now, recently there is a regime change happened after the lot of violence happening in Bangladesh. Now, despite many changes in the regimes, India-Bangladesh relations maintained very strong because India-Bangladesh relations are multifaceted in nature. They cannot be reduced to one single issue. That is what this author is saying. Now, this article is important, especially in GS2 India and neighborhood relations. There are previous year questions asked about the India-Bangladesh relations also. Now, the author is saying that recently 100 days are completed after this Muhammad Yunus new government. Now, in this context, the author is saying that India-Bangladesh relations cannot be reduced to single issue. There may be hiccups that have happened in the recently. There are relations strained recently because of the change in new regime, but India relations basically have strong foundations. Why? Because India supported liberation of Bangladesh in 1971. Right? Since foundation of Bangladesh itself, India is involved in its relations. in a mutually beneficial manner. Now, this is what the organizers say. Now, there are certain issues this article mentioned in which India and Bangladesh involved. Now, recently, certain projects that are completed, especially transport and energy sector, where recently Nepal transported electricity to the Bangladesh via a electricity grid in India. Now, this indicates that region's economic integration continues trade between India and Bangladesh. And not only that, Bangladesh is very supportive for India's decision to shut the terror camps in the Bangladesh. Now, this is very important from the regional security also. That is what this author is saying. Another important thing is that Bangladesh have a strong Hindu community who have roots in Hindu community, especially this Bangladesh and bordering West Bengal. 13 million Hindu community is there. Now, recently, Prime Minister Narendra Modi also talked to Mohammed Yunus, the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, regarding safety of this Hindu minority in Bangladesh because of the recent issues that was happened in Bangladesh. Now, in this context, the author also said that the envoy of Bangladesh also said that international community and countries should engage with this new Bangladesh after this, which is regime change happened. Now, this is what the article is saying. Now, other important thing that why Bangladesh is very important because Bangladesh is the largest trading partner for India, especially in South Asia. Now, at the world level, Bangladesh is the fifth largest trading partner for India. And this article also mentioned that under SAFTA, that is South Asia Free Trade Agreement, India is giving Bangladesh a duty-free, quota-free access since a decade under this. Now it is helping Bangladesh economy also and economic integration. Now we have India-Bangladesh bilateral military exercises. Now this way there is a lot of cooperation happening in India-Bangladesh. Now India-Bangladesh relations has been rooted in not just geography but also culture, ethnicity also. Now in this say the article is saying that India-Bangladesh relations are very strong despite the changes in the political wind, things like that. Now, in this context, I'm giving a homework for you regarding mains question. Try answer this question. That is, what are the repercussions of frequent political instability in India's neighboring countries? Evaluate the challenges in the light of recent political instability in the Bangladesh. Now, try to answer this question based on our discussion of this article. Now, thank you. Have a nice day.